Mayor, tell us a little bit about this announcement today. Really great news for the town.
Incredible news for the town. A big shout out to Cobourg Council and the staff. This is a team effort. The reality is this term of council has been laser focused on cleaning up the community. And that means not just the safety and security of our streets, but also cleaning up long overdue projects. Projects like the harbor, and we want to get to the pier. That's our next major milestone. The reality is though, there's no point in getting to that pier replacement until we fix the problem that created the issue with the pier in the first place, which is of course our breakwall in Monk's Cove. So the reality is that there's always a process to get things done. And we've known about the need to do this for 10, 15 years. But we also knew that it wasn't fiscally responsible to ask the entirety of the Cobourg tax base to fund this kind of work, because it's not just protecting Cobourg, this is protecting a provincial asset and a federal asset. And so it's great to see the federal government step to the table, put their money where their mouth is at a $5 million investment to offload that from the Cobourg tax base. And I'm looking forward to continuing the advocacy at the provincial, federal, and international level, because it's important to Cobourg that we get help cleaning up our community and getting these long overdue projects put to bed so that we can move forward with new, innovative projects that will be coming in the future.
To say this harbor is important to Lake Ontario, to the boating community, is an understatement. It's so well used throughout the summer.
It's as I said in my speech, it's the jewel, one of the jewels of our community. Excuse me, and it's not this council that created it. It's progressive councils over the last 100 years, transferring it from a place where a ferry from the US came to an industrial port to a massive tourist destination. But what you can see consistent across all of that is that it's key importance to this community, both economically and for the spirit of our community. I mean, my parents live here. I walk with my son across this boardwalk almost every single day. I mean, I remember when I first moved here and the cars were on the pier. That was part of like the ritual of coming to Cobourg. And when I talk about people of being the mayor of Cobourg, the one thing they always say is, you've got an amazing harbor, you've got an amazing beach, you've got an amazing waterfront. It's what is a takeaway from every single person who's come to this community. And so you're right, it is an understatement to stress the importance. I can't stress it anymore. And as I said, this is one step in the path to protecting and hopefully re-enhancing our waterfront over the coming years.
Secondly, you're going on a trip tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow morning, first thing, I'm on the 6 o'clock flight to Washington. I'll be met by political staffers there. I believe I'm in back-to-back meetings from about 11 o'clock Wednesday till Friday at 9 o'clock.
Tell us a little bit about that.
It's through the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Initiative. This is the agency that actually opened the doors to allow this funding opportunity. It's through working with the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Initiative, the Mayor's Initiative. I was able to open the doors, meet the members, meet Vince Badaway, meet other Conservative and Liberal MPs at the federal level to advocate for the need to support Cobourg in our various projects. And one of those projects I was always advocating was, of course, this work. And so it's through a number of connections, and this leads to this, which leads to this, that's led to this day happening. In terms of going to Ottawa, I'm honored to be chosen. I'm going down there with some heavy hitter mayors of Chicago, mayors of Milwaukee. Andrew Horvath is heading down. The mayor of Montreal, I believe, is en route. And so a collection of international mayors, along with our Indigenous partners, are coming to coming to Washington for the Day on the Hill. And it's a set of meetings with ambassadors, with senators, with speakers of the House of Representatives, and as well as members of the White House staff, advocating for collaboration. Because our Great Lakes are the single most important natural resource in North America, period. And so we can't take an Ontario approach or a Canadian approach. We have to take a wholesome, collaborative approach with US and Canadian cities on both sides, working together to advocate for better collaboration, especially in today's times.
I take it the meetings weren't initially about the tariffs, but that's certainly first and foremost now?
I can't speak to the intention of the meetings from the staff perspective. What I can say is that this agency and this group and this advocacy group understands that we need to be working together to protect this natural resource. Unfortunately, the tariffs have taken on all aspects of political talk. And I'll say it again, Pete, I believe fundamentally that the current tariff situation is the single biggest threat to the Canadian way of life in my lifetime. And because of that, I stand firm and proud because I believe that every single elected leader, municipally, provincially, and federally, need to be focused on averting an economic disaster that a tariff situation brings.
On both sides.
Without question, sir. And that's the reality, is that this doesn't work when we're not working together. You heard it from the minister today. Success in projects move forward when we're working together collaboratively, not when we're pitted against one another. I'm proud to be part of first of all, council, who's working collaboratively, because this collaborative council is what's allowing this work. I'm happy to be and proud to be part of a collaborative council staff dynamic. You know, it's great that I'm doing the advocacy work, but if it wasn't for the staff doing the heavy lifting, the engineering, the plans, all that advocacy is for naught. And in the same vein of collaboration, I'm excited to collaborate with the mayors from across the lakes, our Indigenous partners, to do what we can to advocate for a more collaborative relationship between our national partners.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Pete.
Today's announcement, if you can, sir, just a nice announcement for this town.
Yeah, so rolling into town to announce $5 million in partnership with the town of Cobourg here to protect the shoreline. You know, I come from the east end of Toronto. I represent Beaches East York. The south end of my riding is all beach. We know the importance of protecting our shoreline, the importance of our waterfront to our community, and it's the same here. I mean, just look out behind me, how beautiful it is, and we got to make sure this stays protected. And it's overall about a $20 million project, and we're there to partner with the town, and that partnership is everything, and it's going to continue.
Last thing, and thank you for this. Just touch on the tariffs. It's a great day for Cobourg, but it's for this country, it's challenging times to say the least.
Incredibly challenging time. You have a long-standing friend and ally in the United States who's completely turned on us for no good reason whatsoever. We're going to continue to stand strong. We're going to continue to stand united, and we're going to continue to make announcements like this one to provide short-term stimulus to create jobs in communities all across this country, but also provide long-term benefits to our communities at the same time.
Last question, if I can. How do we, I don't want to say, how do we win this economic war with the tariffs?
I think we've got to continue to engage with officials down there, but more than anything, we've got to take our message to the American people. Americans didn't vote for this. Americans didn't vote to wage economic war against Canada. And you know, look, I've got family in Michigan. They're waking up saying, what is this all about? Canadians are our friends, our allies. They have always been. And we've got to remind Americans of that at the same time as we stand forcefully up for our own interests and we fight back tooth and nail. And that's exactly what we're going to do.
Some of the tariff challenges that communities like Cobourg are facing?
So this is the ongoing conversation. I had a meeting in Winnipeg last week with housing ministers across the country, and this was a focus of the conversation, is identifying the challenges, especially around home construction, and as we want to drive down the costs of home building, the tariffs and the uncertainty and the challenges to our dollar, and there are all sorts of reasons that we're going to see cost increases potentially, and you know, part of the answer will come from the Bank of Canada, and they're looking at rates, obviously. The other part of this is on the fiscal side of things. It's in our hands. It's going to. I don't think we're going to see a COVID response. What you're going to see is a more targeted where are we able to get shovels in the ground to make sure there's job creation, and where are there projects where the math doesn't pencil anymore, and we want to make sure those projects continue. Identifying those projects, in addition to engaging with the housing ministers across the country, also sat down with the big city mayors in Ottawa and had the same conversation. Where there are challenges to their capital plans, we're not going to see it overnight, obviously, but as those challenges arise, how do we work together in partnership? And you know, I think this is going to be an ongoing conversation, but just how we can best do it, because you don't want to just see stimulus for the sake of stimulus. You want to see stimulus that in the short term drives jobs, but in the long term drives sustainability and the kind of communities we all want to live in. And so I think that's more of the response you're going to continue to see. This is a pretty good example of it. This morning I was in the East End. I was in Scarborough making an announcement. It was $7 million for a skills training center, because we know if we're going to really build as much as we can in the short but also medium term, we need to rely on an expanded skilled trade. So there's a lot more to be done, and you're going to see more announcements in the coming weeks, but this is a longer conversation than that, and you're going to see a new leader of the Liberal Party on March 9th, a new Prime Minister, and you know, you're going to see, I think, a concerted effort to make sure we're driving infrastructure building and home building, and we're really making that a core priority to create jobs, respond to tariffs. But as I said, make sure that when we are responding with our best foot forward, it's not just about looking at what the other guys doing. It's also about building us up, building up the Canadian economy as much as we can.
When the Ontario Home Builders Association today released numbers of around 60% in certain parts of the province that are, you know, not coming up to speed in relation to home builds.
Yeah.
They have serious concerns about a recession kicking in,
Yeah.
and the tariff having, you know, these long systemic effects. And certainly what you're talking about are projects that are going to come to fruition over the course of the next few years. So we're not going to train people tomorrow.
Yep.
That's going to happen in time. Anything that you can say to their concerns?
Yeah, like I've engaged with, you know, CMHC has now hosted, and I've been part of both roundtables with both builders in getting market homes built, and then also those in the non-market sector in home building, and saying, what are your challenges? How do we work collectively to address them? We've got active conversations again with the housing ministers to say where, you know, the different challenges exist in different communities depending upon where they're at in this country, and so there are broader concerns with uncertainty, there are broader concerns with costs, but there are unique challenges in some places, and so just continuing that engagement. And on the ongoing question of, you know, my concern, I think it's shared by the Ontario Home Builders Association. I mean, we need to, even before the threat of tariffs, getting homes built, you know, our housing crisis across this country was the national challenge. The greatest challenge we face now is the threat or the economic threat of tariffs, but the second order challenge is still getting homes built, making sure we're addressing home building as a matter of productivity, because too many young and talented people can't live in their home communities, can't live in their province, can't live in our country as a matter of affordability, making sure there's generational fairness. If you look, you know, my parents were teachers, and 50 years ago when, you know, when teachers were buying a home in my community, they could afford it, and now good luck, right? So I think there are all sorts of challenges to housing even before the conversation around tariffs. With the threat of tariffs, it's this knock-on challenge where, you know, we've got to make sure it's as affordable as possible, and you know, whether it's taxes, whether it's speeding up permitting, we put programs in place. I'll use one example: the Housing Accelerator Fund. We got deals with 200 municipalities to drive down the cost of building homes, to make sure they're expediting permitting, making sure that they are adding gentle density everywhere that they can. That's all good on the cost side of the equation. We've got to continue that work. We've got a housing infrastructure fund right now. I don't know if there's a deal to be done with here in Cobourg, but we've certainly got a huge number of applications from municipalities here in Ontario and across the country on wastewater and water infrastructure to, again, housing enabling infrastructure to, again, drive down the cost of home building. Part of that conversation is around development charges and how do we stabilize and then reduce those. So we are definitely looking at all possible options of just driving down the cost of getting things built. There's a labor component to that too, and we're alive to that concern. For you know, on day one, I would say, if I have any message, is that we're going to be there to partner with municipalities. We're there as a partner with provinces, and we're there as a partner to industry to listen to concerns, take back those concerns, and act on those concerns.
Can I ask this to the mayor, just briefly, can you talk a little more about your Washington trip, what you hope to get out of it, what the group is looking for?
Very briefly at a high level, the reason we're here today is actually to do with the group that we're talking about, the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Initiative. It was through being a member of that group that actually opened up the opportunity to advocate to various Liberal and Conservative MPs at various events on behalf of Cobourg and on behalf of that agency. It was through that organization I met Vince Badaway, who's been a big supporter of the Great Lakes as well as shoreline protection, who actually sort of introduced me to the next set of conversations that has sort of led us to this day today. And so in terms of going down to Washington, it's an honor to be chosen to go down with members like Andrea Horvath of Hamilton and Plante of Montreal. But what I hope to bring is advocacy on behalf of that agency as well as all Canadians. As we move forward in a spirit of collaboration, I believe it is of vital importance from every elected level, be it municipally, provincially, or federally, to engage in what is potentially the greatest threat to Canada in my lifetime, if not going back to 1812. And I think that as elected leaders, we need to look at all tools available to us and work to avoid a worsening of the situation.